All right, so the next topic is animal behavior. So some key terms that we need to know is an adaptation, and we've already seen this when we talked about evolution. So this is a feature in a population that allows an organism to better survive and reproduce in that specific habitat, right? So we talked a lot about adaptations when we talked about evolution and survival of the fittest. So there are three types: behavior, structure, and reproduction. So the first is an innate behavioral adaptation. Innate behaviors are things you know how to do when you're born. So these are not things that you learn. It's just you know how to do it. What's something that we are born knowing how to do that we don't learn?
Oh. No, we have to learn that. Cry. Blink.
Blinking, right? Do we learn how to do those things? It just happens, right? So those are known as innate behaviors, okay? So some examples in animals are spiders spinning a web, birds building nests, dolphins leaping from the water, and caterpillars making cocoons. So those are things they are born knowing how to do, okay? They're born with them. Okay, so some innate behaviors include suckling. So this is essentially newborn mammals breastfeeding. Next is hibernation. So this is sleeping during the winter, sleeping when it is cold. So who hibernates?
Bears.
Bears, okay? Then the opposite of this, and this is a term that you may not have seen before, is estivation. So this is when you sleep during the summer. So sleeping when it's hot. So, and what? Okay. Next, and we've seen this term, is phototaxis. We've seen and we've talked about positive and negative phototaxis, right? Positive means positive. You go where?
You pointed up.
If it's positive, you're going
Up. To the light.
to the light.
I said that.
Okay, not up.
That's why I said
to
the
light.
light.
All right.
See?
And then negative phototaxis would be
Go away from
go away from the light, okay? So we talked about moths. Where do they go?
to the light.
To the light. Cockroaches, away from the light, okay? Another great example is a plant. Where's that gonna go?
To the light.
To the light, okay? So phototaxis is response to or from light. Next is migration, and we should have heard this before. This is the movement to a warmer climate, better feeding area, or better mating area. So who migrates? Okay, so birds usually go where? South for the winter, okay? Duck hunting. All right, so what kind of innate behavior? Birds fly south for the winter. What did we just say this was? Migration. Bears sleep during the winter. Hibernation. Asparagus grows toward the light. Asparagus grows towards the light. What is it? Phototaxis. Positive or negative? A puppy gets milk from its mother.
I don't know what it's called. I can't remember.
Suckling. Crabs sleep during the summer.
Hibernation.
No, that's station.
Estivation. Okay, the opposite. Hibernation's cold, winter. All right, so then the opposite of these is learned behaviors. Okay, so learned behaviors are things that have to be taught. So the first example of this is habituation. What word do you hear in there?
Habit.
Habit. Okay, habit. So an animal gets used to a stimulus because it happens often with no effect. So examples of this are crying wolf, Okay, we've heard that before, right? The boy who cried wolf, he cried wolf so many times, then finally when he really needed somebody, okay, nobody believes him. Leaving the classroom when the bell rings. So that is a habit, okay? So these are, this is habituation. Another example is if you you pick up and move near train tracks, right? It might wake you up if it comes by the same time of night, but then after so long, it becomes a habit, so it won't wake you up anymore. Everybody, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Next is imprinting. Anybody ever heard this word before?
Yes. In Twilight.
Yes, in Twilight. That is correct. Okay. So a baby learns to follow the first thing it sees. So examples of these are ducks and geese. So they typically would follow the first thing they see once they hatch. Next one is classical conditioning. Okay. This is when an animal learns to associate two things together. The best example of this is Pavlov's dogs. So anybody ever hear of that before? Pavlov's dogs? Okay. So they expected food when they heard a bell. So Pavlov would ring a bell, and so in turn, the dog expected to get food, so the dog would salivate, okay? Because they expected to get food when the bell rang. Next is trial and error. So an animal learns because it remembers past experiences. So a mouse remembers a maze, okay? A mouse remembers a cat. So you keep trying until you get it. So what kind of learned behavior? What is this a picture of?
The ducks following the geese.
Yep, what's it called? Begins with an I. Imprinting, very good. A dog remembers a trick. You keep doing it until you get it. Blank and blank. Begins with a T.
Training.
You might do several of these.
Tricks.
How about trial?
And error.
Trial and error. You get used to hearing the train driving by the school. Habituation. Okay, if you remember the word habit though, you'll know. All right, next is social behavioral adaptations. So some adaptations occur in groups of organisms, and these are called social behaviors. So the first of these is communication. So this is essentially sending messages to one another, and this is done via pheromones, okay? So ants have them. Next is courtship. So these are mating rituals. So different dances or actions that animals do to be able to attract a mate. And then last is territorial defense. So this is how we defend and fight for an area. So we saw that with the wildebeest yesterday. Okay. All right. What kind of behavior? What are they fighting for?
You don't remember the names of them. Like a social adaptation. That was on the very first slide. That's territorial.
Pheromones.
Courtship.
Yes. What is that one? Imprinting. Go back. What are pheromones? Sending messages, communication. All right. Imprinting. This is when you get used to something. It becomes a what? So habituation. Your dog associates your voice with being fed.
Classic condition.
Classical conditioning. Pavlov's dog. There you go.